YouTube! My name is Scott, and welcome to another episode of Opinions No One Cares About, a video series that answers the question, why do you call it a series if all the episodes are about different things? By getting mysteriously quiet and sneaking away. So I've been thinking it might be time for a little bit of a change in wardrobe, because, well... And naturally I'm going to try and take inspiration from the pop culture universe. The question is, what to choose? Wizard's robes are nice, if a little understated. I could take the black, maybe the Infinity Gauntlet. It's a bit flashy, and then next thing you know, you snap your fingers out of reflex and end up erasing half the universe. Space pajamas, maybe? Kind of form-fitting, and I try to hide this form as much as possible. Oh, maybe a cape!
Knock it!
Right, too dangerous. Maybe a new ring. Maybe not. I could copy the Buckaroo Banzai look for the 8 of you who remember who that is. This might be harder than I thought. Give me a little bit to think about it, okay?
One eternity later.
Okay, I've got it. I'm gonna go with a trench coat. I think this would be good for me, you know? Add a little style, a little flair. It's definitely not a lame excuse to talk about characters who wear trench coats. Okay, fine, I'm going to talk about characters with trench coats. And just to be clear, and get it out of the way, obviously I'm not going to talk about all characters with trench coats. I don't have that kind of time or patience, really. So a trench coat basically looks like this. The style can vary, but just for clarity, let's say it's kind of like a long overcoat. And while they are certainly stylish, they seem kind of bulky and restrictive to me. I mean, I don't know for sure, because I don't wear one yet, but they do kind of seem like they limit mobility a little bit. And they've kind of gained a bad reputation in the real world. Although Monty Python parodied that brilliantly back in the day. And occasionally, they seem a bit superfluous. The image that always comes to mind for me is the 10th Doctor, a Time Lord with a British accent who travels with his companions in a time ship with a 6-sided console in order to fix historical anomalies. I mean, he's wearing that overcoat over a full suit. Or there's Rip Hunter from DC's Legends of Tomorrow, a Time Master with a British accent who travels with his companions in a time ship with a 6-sided console to fix historical anomalies. As far as I know, this didn't lead to a lawsuit. The BBC kind of dropped the ball there. But anyway, glossing over that to get to my so-called point, why do they wear the trench coats? Protection against the elements? Sure, if by elements you mean cold. They're not going to be that much help against the heat, and if they get wet, then it's just a heavy extra coat. And I already explained the possible limited mobility. So as far as I can see, there are really only 2 reasons. 1, the character wears a trench coat because it makes them look cool, which is entirely possible. Or 2, they wear it because it gives them superpowers. Despite what you're thinking, no, my arms don't hurt from reaching that hard to make a point. I mean, I'm going to try and prove it, but this isn't exactly a world-changing topic, right? I'm just some dude messing around in front of a camera. And we're just here to have fun, right? Okay? Good. Let's get into it. Now, first off, there are some trench coat wearers whose powers don't seem to derive from the trench coat at all. Rorschach, from Watchmen, seems to be equally dangerous whether he's wearing his trench coat and the mask or not. Silent Bob, the Kevin Smith character, seems to have the ability to say just the right thing at the right time, as we see here.
There's a million fine-looking women in the world, dude. They don't all bring you lasagna at work. Most of them just cheat on you.
But that power doesn't always work perfectly, as we see from his appearance in the movie Dogma, where he says a total of 3 words.
No ticket. Thanks.
And sometimes he admits it himself.
Well, that's your cue, man.
how about John Constantine? No. Keanu, you're a fine actor, but this was not your best work, dude. You weren't even blonde. Can we get, like, a good one in here? Thank you. John Constantine, the hedonistic warlock. Like I said, his powers don't come from his trench coat. He's put actual work and study into them. And he's really good. He doesn't need enhancement, and he's busy traveling with the legends right now anyway. Oh, you know what he should do, though? Go back to the beginning of the series and talk Rip into giving up that coat. Okay, on to a few to help me prove my point. For starters, Neo. Hey, I went from bad Keanu to good Keanu. Anyway, Neo is prophesied to be the savior of the Matrix, and he has several lifetimes worth of martial arts skills downloaded into his brain, and the trench coat has nothing to do with that. He's not even wearing it at the time. But when Morpheus is kidnapped later in the movie, he decides to throw all that out the window in favor of a good old-fashioned lobby massacre. Armed with nothing but that fashionable black trench coat, and an amount of guns that would make any NRA member weep with joy, Neo murders his way across the room without getting a scratch on him. And it's also the point in the movie when he starts realizing his power, as you may recall from this classic bit. It seems very fitting that the point where he realizes he might be the one is also the point where he starts wearing a trench coat. But maybe that's just me. Now, the power seems to vary from coat to coat. Carmen Sandiego doesn't have Matrix-level powers, obviously. No, her particular gift from the coat seems to be invisibility. I mean, look at her. She's wearing a bright red trench coat with a matching hat, and yet she's nearly impossible to find. Is she like Harry Potter, descended from Ignotus Peverell, creator of the invisibility cloak, just better with a needle? Probably not. I mean, does Carmen Sandiego sound like a wizard's name to you? Oh. Future video idea. Is Carmen Sandiego a witch? Moving on. Nick Fury's trench coat seems to make him nearly invincible. I mean, just look at all the trauma he endured in Winter Soldier.
Lacerated spinal column, cracked sternum, shattered collarbone, perforated liver, one hell of a headache.
Don't forget your collapsed lung.
Let's not forget that. Otherwise, I'm good.
And he survived all that. The only permanent damage we've ever seen is his eye, and we all know that happened well before he was wearing the trench coat. Now granted, that coat couldn't stop him from getting dusted, but it was going up against the power of 6 Infinity Stones, so I'll allow it. Then there's Lieutenant Columbo, LAPD homicide detective. Odd choice, I know, especially since some of you may not know who he is, but hear me out. Your basic murder mystery follows a pretty standard formula. Introduce the characters, one of them gets murdered, investigations happen, and the culprit is caught. The Columbo series would utilize the reverse whodunit format, whereas we would see the murder get committed at the beginning of the episode, and we'd see the murderer plan it all out, and then we'd sit back and watch Columbo try to figure it out. So, since this was LA, you're dealing with a lot of powerful and or successful people who are arrogant enough to think that they could actually get away with murder. Then, along comes this guy in a rumpled up trench coat. He doesn't look like a detective. He tends to bumble his way around the crime scene. He's constantly forgetting his notebook in the many pockets of his outfit. He's almost always looking up at them and squinting, partially because Peter Falk had a glass eye, and he seems to be perpetually forgetful, as we see from the line that would eventually become his catchphrase.
One other thing.
One more thing, sir. One other thing.
One more thing.
Oh, doctor?
Yes?
One more thing.
And the whole thing always infuriates the murderers to no end, to the point where they pretty much get fed up with him, not seeming to realize that a lot of it is an act, until he drops the hammer and they go to jail. Now, I don't deny that Columbo probably has a fair amount of deductive reasoning and intelligence, but I do believe it is enhanced, at least partly, by the trench coat. But why do I say this, you ask? Because Los Angeles is hot. It's situated at the edge of a desert, and the average summer temperature during the 70s, which is around the time the series began, was about 74 degrees. And Columbo would constantly wear that coat over his suit. He walked around like that willingly. Would you do that unless you had something to gain out of it? I wouldn't. You know, I get the feeling that a lot of you are looking at that picture of him and seeing this. Maybe this was reaching a little bit too far back. Let's move on. I'm going to get a little more contemporary and end it with Castiel from Supernatural. Fun fact, his look was actually based on John Constantine. Kaz is an angel, literally created by God. Does that mean it would be dumb of me to say that his powers come from the trench coat? Yes. But if you go back and watch the show, you'll notice that there are many times when he's not wearing it that correspond with a loss of that power, or as the show termed it, his grace. Angels in the supernatural verse can only come to Earth by possessing worthy and willing human vessels. Castiel's vessel is a man named Jimmy Novak, who was wearing the coat when Kaz possessed him. And now at the end of season 4, Kaz leaves Jimmy to return to heaven, and that's the first time that we see him not wearing the trench coat. Now, Kaz eventually comes back and possesses Jimmy again, and the coat comes back, but from there until the end of season 8, the only times we see Castiel without the trench coat are when he's unable to use his grace, or in one episode where he has amnesia, when he forgets he even has it. At the end of season 8, Kaz actually becomes mortal, thanks to the angel Metatron taking his grace, and at the beginning of season 9, he leaves the trench coat behind. Until about halfway through the season when he takes another angel's grace and brings the coat back. Except it actually looks slightly different, which corresponds to the fact that the grace that Castiel has isn't his. It's almost like somebody up there decided there was going to be a correlation between the trench coat and Castiel having his angel powers. And yes, it was probably you, Chuck, but I'm not giving you credit because you turned into a jerk. Dude opened the gates of hell. Come on. Would you be able to forgive him for that? Okay, that's where I'm calling it. The trench coat. An unassuming article of clothing that seems to enhance the powers of some fictional characters who wear it. Even angels. You know what? I think I'm going to buy one. Hold on. Amazon doesn't say which style grants which power. Guess I'll have to roll the dice on this one. Wish me luck. Hey everybody, thanks for sticking around until the end of the video. I hope you do all the usual YouTube stuff, like, share, subscribe, comment if you can think of a character whose powers may or may not be enhanced by a trench coat. Comment if you think this is a dumb theory and I should have picked something else this week. I don't know. Whatever you like. I mean, it's no skin off my nose, this video's already done. Anyway, until next time, I've been Scott, and this has been Opinions No One Cares About. Everyone has opinions. This one was mine.